Trust me, you're not alone. Don't beat yourself up because this is the world we're living in. But social media is not going away. So we just need to be able to work with how we are setting up our relationship with it. Welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. In this show, we're getting real about navigating the ups and downs of life together. I'm your host, Erin, and we're ditching the pressure to have it all figured out along the way because honestly, nobody does. We'll explore all things healing, growing, creating, and connecting. And if you deal with anxiety, depression, being a highly sensitive person, or just feeling overwhelmed by life sometimes, I see you, and this show is for you. My intention with these conversations is simple: to leave you feeling empowered, validated, and most importantly, reminded that you are never alone, no matter where you're at on your own journey. Learning that we all have the power to heal genuinely changed my life. And the best part, healing does not have to be complicated. The smallest changes really can make the biggest impact, and it can be joyful, fulfilling, and something that we do together. So join me in getting real about what it means to heal. Thank you for being here, and now let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin, or welcome back to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. I am your host, Erin, and I am so grateful to have you here with me today. And I'm looking forward to getting into today's topic because I shared over on our Instagram stories at ebbsandflows222 yesterday asking what you guys might want the next podcast episode to be. And I gave 4 options, all of which I will record eventually. But the winner, the overall pick, was how to create a healthier relationship with social media. So that is what you're going to get today. And I felt inspired to talk about this on an episode because a while back I shared on our stories a little bit about my personal journey with social media and creating a healthier relationship to it. And I asked, again on a poll, if you guys have social media breaks or if you have social media free days. And some said yes, some said no, but the number one response was no, but I want to. So I figured, why not give some tips or talk about the things that helped me to create a healthier relationship with social media as someone who definitely had quite a toxic relationship with it for some time. So we're going to get into ways that you can help yourself create a healthier relationship with social media because it really does not have to be a toxic thing. And I would like to start being a little bit more interactive with the podcast over on Instagram. So again, things like asking for your opinion on podcast topics, what you want to hear about, asking questions that maybe you want answered on the podcast, things like that. So if you're not following over on Instagram at ebbsandflows222, be sure to do that because I want this to be a conversation and I want it to be as helpful as it can possibly be. You can also always email me at erinebbsandflows@gmail.com. Also on that note, I was looking at the stats of where our listeners are located on my podcast host website the other day. And okay, I know I'm putting this out on a platform that is global. Anyone, anywhere can listen at any time, but I don't know why it still is so shocking and cool to me to see people from different countries are listening and it's actually reaching people. And it makes me really excited to continue growing this community because I live in Canada and I mean, that is our main source of listeners, but we have listeners in America, Australia, Ireland, Sweden, Thailand, Germany, Finland, Mexico, New Zealand. The list goes on. Hello to everyone from everywhere. I am thrilled to have you all and to continue growing this community. I also know that on some of the episodes, I will link mental health resources depending on the topic, and I'll usually link them to Canadian resources, but be sure to look up the resources in your specific country. But yeah, just wanted to note that and welcome. And one last update before we jump into it. This week, I received my meditation teacher certification from Arhanta Yoga, which is a yoga meditation teacher school that is based in India, and they also offer all of their trainings online. I did my meditation teacher training with them online over this past year, and I received my certificate this week, and I am extremely grateful to them. I learned a lot that I'm excited to just keep implementing into my own personal life and to share with others. Oh, here comes Lolita, my cat. If you're watching on YouTube, she has entered the building. She is on my lap and she's now climbing onto the desk. She has been on one today, wanting all the attention. Hi, sweetie. Oh, and now she's kissing my neck. Lolita is worth watching on the YouTube alone. She typically makes an appearance. I will leave them in sometimes in the episodes, but sometimes I feel like I should cut it out because if you're not a visual watcher, listener, I'm sure this is kind of boring. But anyways, we have Lolita on my chest. But yeah, I'm excited to begin offering meditations. I'm going to publish them on this podcast. So doing meditation episodes. I'm going to start posting some on YouTube at the Ebbs and Flows with Erin YouTube channel and offering in-person meditations. And on that note, I have actually one more update. If you live in the Edmonton, Alberta area, my partner in Retreats and Workshops, Lacey, and I are putting on our next workshop for the first full moon of 2025 on January 12th. It's a Sunday. It's going to be from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the Edmonton area. It's at a location out in Sturgeon County called the Wyatt Weeb Center for Healing, which the energy of this land and this location is indescribable. It is divine. Perfect location for a healing workshop. We're going to be doing yin yoga, Reiki, meditation, journaling, connecting with women. So I will have the details to that linked in the show notes and the YouTube description below. If you are in the area, we would be thrilled to have you join us. I'm so excited. I have missed connecting with women in this format since our last retreat in September. So details to that you can find below. And I look forward to seeing you there and to connecting through meditation online as well. To be honest, when I signed up for the course, I mostly wanted to strengthen my knowledge behind meditation, what it does to your brain and your body, and why it is powerful to use for healing and growing and expanding and bettering our overall health and wellness. And I learned a lot. And I am going to do a future episode about lessons learned from meditation teacher training, so stay tuned for that as well. And now we will get into today's episode, how to create a healthier relationship with social media. So I think by this point in time, we all have heard all of the talk about how social media can be toxic or negative, and that we might just be better off without it in our lives. But that just simply is not reality where we are at in this landscape of time. That's not going to happen. Social media is here and it is here to stay. And there are a lot of positive things about it. It inspires creativity, connection, support, learning, opportunities, inspiration in itself. There are a lot of positive things about social media, but it's all about how you use it. And I have learned that in my own journey with it. And my experience with it really has went from being a negative grounds for anxiety, depression, and comparison, and shame and judgment, obsessive tendencies, to being all those things that I just mentioned on the positive side. But it is a journey to get there, and it does take you taking intentional action to shift your relationship with it. A study by Stanford did find that a use of social network sites is associated with an increase in anxiety, depression, and psychological distress. I don't think that comes as a shock to anyone, but again, it's all about how we're using social media. And when my relationship was getting carried away and toxic and addictive, straight up, I was addicted to social media. I would suddenly find myself picking up and scrolling on my phone mindlessly without even realizing that I was doing that. And I would be doing that several times a day. And I would be obsessing over what I was posting, what it looked like, how I was posting it, when to post it, what were other people posting, what should I be posting. It took up a lot of my mental space and energy, and kind of for most of the wrong reasons for a long time. So today we are going to go over some advice or tips to help you cultivate a healthier relationship with social media. From my experience as someone who went from having a social media addiction, it fostered a lot of anxiety-inducing comparison, shame, judgment, and through this advice that I'm going to share, I've been able to have a healthier relationship with social media where I experience the more positive things like inspiration, creativity, connection, support, learning, the positive sides of it. So let's get into it. My first tip is to take breaks. I think that this is the number one place that you have to start, in my experience, when it comes to shifting your relationship with social media, because you simply cannot just think about how you want to create a healthier relationship with it while you're still doing everything the same way you've been doing it, while you're still mindlessly scrolling and not changing anything or setting any sort of boundaries around the amount of time you're allowing yourself to spend on it. And for me, this was a big break. I took about a 2-year break from social media, and this is when my most intensive, deepest healing happened. But it does not need to be that extreme. Listen to your intuition and what feels right for you. I do think starting with a longer break or incorporating a longer break will be beneficial in the start, and then when you re-enter your relationship with social media, setting a boundary where you have 1 full day a week or maybe 2 full days a week where you're not on social media. Or if this feels too daunting, and sometimes it's worse to overcomplicate things or make these big changes because it's harder to do, so then you just end up not doing it at all. So if this feels too daunting or difficult, start with just a few hours a day, 1 day a week or a few days a week, and use those app time limits on your phone. If you have an iPhone, use the app time limits and set them so you're literally forcing yourself not to be on the apps for a certain amount of time on whichever days. So if you have to force yourself and not rely on your willpower, that is okay, and trust me, you're not alone. Don't beat yourself up, because this is the world we're living in. But social media is not going away, so we just need to be able to work with how we are setting up our relationship with it. So if you have to use the time limit settings for your apps, especially to start off, do that. Force yourself into it. But I do believe taking a longer break from social media is what especially set me up to re-enter social media and completely shift my relationship with it, as someone who, my relationship was that I was fully addicted. I was comparing, shaming, judging myself, probably others. It was anxiety inducing. I was in a depression at this time when it was at its height. I knew when it came time that I took my long break, I knew that this was a negative thing in my life and taking up so much mental space, and not in a good way. But taking breaks. I typically will choose the weekend and go Saturday, Sunday off of social media. So like I said, if you have to force yourself into it and do something like deleting the app from your phone or using the app time limit things, do that. It will get easier. It is like any other addiction. Once your brain has enough time away from it, it's going to reset. And as long as you re-enter the relationship with some mindset shifts and some boundaries and cultivating a different, healthier space, allowing yourself to still take time away from it regularly, you will be able to experience a healthier relationship with it. And don't beat yourself up if you are someone who has to force yourself into this somehow, especially at the beginning. Notice it and then make a shift. And if you're on social media for business, or you're building a brand, following a community, you might hear this and think, well, I can't afford to take a day or days off of social media or time off of social media. And my suggestion to you is to schedule your posts. Pretty much every platform now has the schedule post option, and this is a game changer because you can batch create your posts and then schedule them. You can choose a certain window of time each week or days each week where you're going to focus on creating your content and then scheduling it. So you can have posts going out every day if you want, but you don't have to be on the app and it can still go out. So I think that is extremely positive. It's been positive for me. I am a marketing professional. I have my marketing degree. My day job is in marketing. So even when I was doing my 2-year break from social media, I was technically still on social media for work, but in a whole different capacity, definitely different environment than my personal social media was. But scheduling posts allows you to spend less time on the app and allows you to free up your mental space and your time and your productivity because you can batch create and schedule. And so you don't have to feel guilty for taking time away from the apps. If you're thinking, well, what if someone reaches out to me with a message? You can also now create automatic messages to go out in response to direct messages on most platforms as well. Use automations. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Use automations, because there are so many tools on these apps now that if you use them in the right way, they will allow you to actually show up more on the app while not actually having to be on the app and on the platforms, but having your content go out so you can be building a community, building a brand, but not having to be on social media all day, every day. So setting boundaries is pretty much what we've been talking about. Setting boundaries with yourself. How much time are you going to allow yourself to spend on social media each day or each week? What are the hours of the day that you're going to allow yourself to spend on the apps? Are there certain activities in your life or times in your life throughout the month or the weeks that you are going to not allow yourself to be on it so that you can be present in the things you're doing? Like if you're at dinner with a loved one or even with yourself, are you going to allow yourself to be on social media while you eat? That's one thing. Eating more mindfully, just putting down the phone while you're eating, because especially if you're alone, it's common to pick up the habit of scrolling on your phone while you're eating, and that is one tip as well. Try not to be on social media while you're eating. There is a whole bunch of science and research-backed information about our digestive tract and eating more mindfully and how our digestion improves when we are not scrolling while eating. Or you're not alone and you're out to dinner with people, or you're sitting down and having dinner with your partner. Are you going on social media? Setting these boundaries with yourself of the activities or events where you're not going to allow yourself to be on social media. Otherwise, if you don't mentally set these or write them down, it's hard to rely on your willpower in the moment throughout every day without any sort of plan or boundaries set in your mind or written down, because this is something where so quickly you can be picking it up without even thinking about it. Another area could be working out. Are you allowing yourself to open up your apps and be on social media while you're working out, while you're going for your walks? Maybe during your work hours, you are not allowing yourself to be on social media, or maybe it's the opposite. You're scheduling social media time. So you're scheduling the time that you're allowing yourself to be on social media throughout your workday, during breaks, whatever it may be, whatever it looks like for you. It can look different from person to person because everyone's life is different, but taking the time to mentally or write this down, your boundaries with social media. These can look different from person to person, but try thinking about what boundaries you want to set for yourself and then taking note of the difference in how you feel when you are practicing these boundaries. Okay, my next piece of advice, which is huge. This is what is going to create the more positive environment when you are on your social media, and that is to curate your following and do audits of what you're following, what you're allowing yourself to see and allowing to pop up in your feed. Now, yes, Instagram and TikTok, these platforms, they are showing you things that you are not necessarily choosing to follow, but the algorithm is pretty good at showing you things that are related to what you are choosing to look at. So curating it as much as you can to your ability. So things like unfollowing anything that doesn't make you feel good when you're looking at it. Take the time to go through your following and go through accounts, and if it's something that you know doesn't make you feel good when you see their posts, or really think into it and think, do I fall into a loop of shaming myself or comparing myself or feeling like I have to keep up with a certain image or keep up with what I'm seeing? Asking yourself what each account you're following is making you feel, and then acting accordingly if it's not making you feel good, if it's not falling into any of the categories of inspiring you, teaching you, supporting you, connecting you. It probably is something you don't need to be following. So hitting that unfollow button, there is so much power in that unfollow, and you have full power over your own social media, choosing who you get to follow. And I know in this climate of social media, it can be taken as offensive if someone is unfollowed. But I think a good rule of thumb is if you don't have a relationship with someone outside of social media, if you don't have a relationship or a friendship, a connection with an account, a brand, a person outside of social media and in real life, do you really need to be following them? And not in an offensive way, it's just maybe in the past you were following things that you had an interest in that you no longer have an interest in, or you have zero connection. It should not be taken as an offense. I mean, of course, if it's someone you do have a relationship with in your real life and suddenly they've unfollowed you, maybe you want to explore that with them. But outside of that, I really feel that it should not be taken as an offense to be unfollowed. And you don't even have to unfollow people anymore. You can put them on mute, but energetically, there is a lot of power in choosing your following. And for myself, this is where my catalyst for creating ebbs and flows on Instagram came from. One of the catalysts was that I felt ready to enter back into social media. I wanted to connect and feel inspired, and I wanted to do this in the areas of the things I had been leaning into, learning about, healing, growing, creating, and connecting. And I knew I wanted to do this on a separate platform. I didn't want it to be my personal Instagram. I wanted a new platform where I had a completely fresh following. I could choose exactly how to curate what I was seeing on my feed and what I was giving my energy to. And that really is where Ebbs and Flows originally came from. I was only following accounts that inspired me, or that I was learning from, or that fostered connection. And I was only sharing things that helped me in areas of healing, growing, creating, connecting. That's where that tagline came from, because those are the things I desired, and that's also what I wanted to share, because these are the things that had brought me such deep healing in this 2-year period of being off of social media, and continued after these 2 years as well. But that is what I wanted to share and connect with on social media. And so Ebbs and Flows really is where my positive relationship with social media has flourished. Whereas before, in my past, I was scrolling and comparing, shaming, and this induces anxiety because you're hyper aware of the different trends of what people are posting, or what people seem like they want to see, or what people seem to like. And you eventually burn out from social media because it's impossible to keep up. And on that note, keeping in mind that no matter how authentic someone or a brand, a person is being, you are always only going to see a small portion of someone's life on social media. You can only know and gather so much, no matter how authentic the content is. So keep that in mind when you are scrolling. If you're starting to fall into comparing yourself, or wondering, wow, things look so easy for them, or why does everything happen this way for them, or how do they keep this up, and how do they do this, I should be able to do this, how do I do this? Remind yourself that there is always more to the story. Not saying that people are trying to hide things about themselves or to show up in an inauthentic way. But no matter how authentically you're showing up, there's always more to the story. We never know someone's full story and the full context of someone's life and makeup as a person. So keep that in mind. Because again, it can be really easy to fall into comparing yourself and wondering why things look easy for someone else, or look so good for someone else, or blah, 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 blah. There's always more to the story. And on that note, when you are showing up on social media, when you are choosing to post, try to be as authentic as you can be. I know authenticity is a buzzword now, but it's for a reason. People, want to see authenticity, and it helps to foster a healthy relationship with social media for yourself and for others. Because when others see you being authentic, it gives them permission to also show up authentically. And again, when you don't allow yourself to show up authentically, and you're showing up in ways where you feel like you have to over-curate what you're saying or what you're showing, how you're showing it, how you're saying it, you eventually will burn out. Because it's impossible to keep that up, or it'll lead to inconsistency. And if you're trying to build a brand build a following or a community, you want to be able to be consistent, and feeling like you have to over-curate yourself and what you're putting out is a sure way to make it so that you don't want to show up consistently, because it's taking up way too much mental energy and time, and you start to feel lost in yourself. So I think I mentioned when it came time for me that I felt I needed to take my long social media break, I had realized that I had been sharing things before I was able to implement them in my life and truly experience the effect or the positive benefit of the things that I was sharing. So pretty much preaching before I was able to practice it enough to know the benefit of what I was preaching. And that was another reason for me that I wanted to check myself and be like, okay, take this time away from social media where I'm doing these things to help heal myself and grow without feeling like I need to tell others about it or tell others to do it and tell others why they should do it. Let me just work on integrating and implementing these things and seeing what comes of it, and then I can speak about it more genuinely. And that, again, is what led me to Ebbs and Flows as well, because at this point I had spent pretty much all of my free time, countless hours, days, months, studying, learning, implementing, integrating holistic practices, things to better myself, my overall mental health, physical health, all things, my day-to-day lived experience, and actually had come out on the other side and seen what had worked and seen what has made a difference, and now I can genuinely talk about it. And so when I first created Ebbs and Flows, a lot of what I was sharing was lessons I'd learned from therapy and my thoughts on them, sharing practices that I had experienced or integrated that have changed something positively for me under the umbrella of healing, growing, creating, and connecting. And I also knew I wanted to reach an audience who this is what they were looking for, whereas, again, before I was doing this on my personal page of an audience that I don't know if that's what they cared to see. And yes, of course, like I said, anyone's free to unfollow or mute or not pay attention to whatever I'm posting, but I wanted to foster community with people who were like-minded or who were looking for things that I was once looking for and now can share about that have helped me. So again, Ebbs and Flows has been a healing experience when it comes to social media. Genuinely now, when I do scroll, I'm on Ebbs and Flows and I'm seeing things that inspire me, that I'm learning from, connecting, fostering positive connection, and the things that I share, I can genuinely share now because I have absolutely taken the time to experience the effects of the things that I'm talking about. So on that note, another tip is to be mindful about what you're posting. Take a moment before you're posting something to ask yourself, okay, why am I posting this? What is the purpose? And that is going to be a clarifying question in itself. And on the topic of mindfulness, outside of social media, practicing mindfulness and grounding to stay present, to ground yourself in this real world, to this earth, to the energy of what is real. Engaging in activities outside of your phone. So yes, it can be things like meditation, yoga, connecting with nature outside, expressing yourself creatively, just having a hobby, painting, drawing, dancing, singing, playing an instrument, giving yourself a project, a DIY project for around your house, making something for someone else, baking, cooking, whatever it may be. Having hobbies to look to outside of scrolling on your phone is also going to be helpful in creating a more positive relationship, because scrolling on your phone is not your only hobby, which you can still do, but have other things that you are looking to do outside of simply defaulting to laying on the couch and scrolling. And when it comes to staying present and grounded and living in the moment, this can be hard with social media because, especially with things like stories, you can get caught up trying to get the perfect picture, the perfect video. Okay, now what filter do I put on it? What do I say with it? What am I posting? So my tip is, and this has been really helpful, again, for me, and I know others that share in this tip, is to take the photos and videos when you're doing whatever, but try not posting them in the moment. take some time later when you have some free time to just focus on that and post them later. Do a recap, just post it later. This is going to help you stay present in the moment. And there's nothing wrong with taking photos and videos, not even for social media, but just to have for your memories. But you're going to notice that when you're not in the moment trying to figure out what to post, what to say, what filter to use, etc., you're able to stay more present and grounded in your day-to-day and in what you're doing and fostering deeper connection with the people you're with while you're doing it. Okay, my final tip for now is to try and limit yourself to one screen at a time. So if you're watching TV, you're watching TV, you're not scrolling social media. If you're scrolling social media, you're doing that. You're not turning on the TV or turning on your laptop to watch a show. A lot of where the social media addiction can come from is because it releases dopamine and our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and we're needing more and more to get that dopamine hit in this world where we often can have several screens going at once, and especially if that screen, one of them involves social media where you're scrolling and getting dopamine hits every few seconds. So trying to limit to one screen at a time will help you to regulate your dopamine release once again. So to sum this all up, there are practical tools here to help you spend less time on social media, to curate your feed, to make it a more positive environment when you're actually on social media. But another thing, an overall arching theme here, is that working on your self-worth and your own self-love and your own self-image is going to be the root of all of this in healing and bettering your relationship with social media, because a lot of the toxicity and the negativity that stems from social media use stems from, again, the comparison loops, the feeling like we have to keep up with others and what the trends are and what others are doing and what's cool, what's trendy right now. Why does she look like that? Why do things look so easy for them? Why does their life look so perfect? And why does it look like this? How do I look like this? How do I get that body? Blah, 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 blah. So when you're able to work on your self-worth and your self-image and be rooted in feeling good about yourself and who you are authentically, that is going to, not only in social media, but we're talking social media, that is going to be the root of helping you to avoid falling into the anxiety-inducing, shame-inducing comparison spiral that social media can bring. Yes, we can curate our feeds to be as positive as we possibly can, but even then, inevitably, it can be easy to fall into those negative loops and thoughts about ourselves if we are not cultivating a positive relationship and outlook on ourselves. So I urge you to do simple things that can help you to embrace your true, authentic self and cultivate self-love, self-worth, self-confidence. And a lot of the things that I am talking about on this podcast are helping to do so, because that is something that I deeply worked on and continue to work on throughout my healing journey as someone who once lived primarily in anxiety, depression, shame, guilt, fear, comparison, feeling lost and overwhelmed, not knowing who I was because I was masking myself and curating myself depending on the environments I was in as a highly sensitive person. All these things I have talked about before and will keep talking about, but genuinely I can only speak on these things because they're things that I have actually been able to experience, benefit, tangible, positive outcomes from, and change from implementing. And I now live a life that is primarily rooted in ease and joy and self-love and worth. And yes, those more negative feelings will always still come up, but it's about being able to navigate them and not fall into the spiral and live in the spiral, which I once did. And it's so easy too. And if that's how you feel or you've been feeling, don't beat yourself up. You're not alone and you're not crazy. But I'm going to keep sharing things here with the mission to spread what has helped me, hoping that it can be helpful to others. I hope that you can take something from this episode. I feel really rambly today. I hope I was able to make these things make sense and deliver value to you. I look forward to talking to you guys next week. I'm sending a lot of love and gratitude, and I will chat with you next week. Bye bye.